Hey everybody, welcome to Amongst Friends podcast. I'm Nick. We've got Barrett and Brandon here. Thanks for joining us. We've got a couple topics we're going to discuss today. I think pretty much all of them are gaming related, but we'll get to those in a little bit. But thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoy the conversation. But yeah, guys, how's it going? Tell me something good. What's going on? I'll go first.
Um,
No,
yeah,
never
you go
mind.
first.
Okay,
No,
fine.
you go first.
Well, it's a good thing and a bad thing, I think. The first thing that came to mind is like I'm playing like four different games right now. They're all great, but I Metaphor is what I'm sucked into right now. Also played some Echoes of Wisdom. Probably
Mm.
halfway through Silent Hill, and there was something else that we got with our PSN credit. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, but
Mm.
barely started that. That's like on the parking lot. But yeah, anyway, great,
The
a bunch of great games this month. Metaphor is like at the top of the list for me, but I'm grateful for being able to play all this stuff when I have time.
the demo for
What about
Grand
you?
Blue Fantasy was great. I just haven't. That's one of those like I'm hoping to get to eventually.
Yeah,
I just
my
grabbed
buddy
it because it was
Lucas was
on
all over that
sale.
game.
Yeah, it's on sale for like it was like $35. I had like PlayStation Stars points, and we had some PSN credit and different stuff. I was like, I really don't need another game right now. But I was like, man, it's not gone on sale many times since it came out. So I was like, you know what, let me grab this. And I'm kind of on a JRPG, uh, I don't know, marathon, it feels like right
Hmm.
now. So, or maybe just an RPG marathon in general. But yeah, it's great. I feel like a lot of PS2 vibe games are coming out, and I love it.
How is Echoes of Wisdom? Because I feel like, I don't know. That's one of the next games I want to get, but
Mm.
I didn't want to buy another Switch game because Kanan wants the new Epic Mickey remaster. So
Dude, that,
can't
yeah,
do both at once. But
I wouldn't, well, okay, so I'll just answer your question. I was going to start waxing on uh, Epic Mickey, but I do want that too. It's a short story, but Echoes is great, like truly great. It's a lot of people have been when there's always criticism, but it does run a little rough on the Switch. I'll just throw that out there. Like, just it goes between 30 frames and 60, which feels really weird. So like sometimes it's like the smoothest Zelda ever, and then other times it drops down when you're in towns, and it does that a lot. I realize I really don't care that much though, and it still looks great. Like it consistently runs at one or the other, which is interesting. But so that aside, it's awesome. Like I think something I might have told you guys is like uh like Princess Peach Showtime I think came out this year, right? And I didn't play it.
no.
I didn't really have interest in playing it. Just when I saw in the gameplay, it looks cool artistically, but I didn't think it would be like really engaging for me to play. But it was definitely a spin-off. And when I saw Echoes of Wisdom announced, I was like, okay, another spin-off. This is going to be different. Is it going to be it's weird. It's like, is it going to be a Link game or a Zelda game? And it's very much like a traditional Legend of Zelda, in all the good ways. But they've got like really unique mechanics. And actually, like even the fact that there's like a mini map in the bottom right corner, you start bleeding into like the Tears of the Kingdom stuff. So anyway, it's awesome. It's way better than it looked initially to me. Um, the I mean I'm loving it so far. It feels like they took Tears of the Kingdom's overworld and they just turned it into that chibi traditional like old school style while
The
still
Link's so like
keeping
they did with Link's Awakening.
well they did, but I mean like quite literally like between the and I won't spoil anything between the races of like species, the towns, the desert areas, like they feel
Hmm.
like they took like the biomes and how they were set up in tiers and put those into the game. Um, and that's down to like the towns and everything. So, and I love that. I think it's really great. So,
That's awesome.
I like
if
that approach to the games too. Like, um, at least like the way they're kind of alternating between
Mhm.
having the open world RPG and then back to the more classic Zelda style with Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom. So it's like if they keep like alternating between those, like between releases, I kind of like
You think
that
they
cadence.
really have room to make another Tears of the Kingdom? Make something bigger than that? Nah.
It's a great question. I mean,
I like, yeah, that's an off-topic rant, but I think that's like the end-all be-all open world Zelda game. I haven't even touched it yet, but I've played Breath of the Wild and understand how much bigger Tears of the Kingdom is, and that has kept me from playing Tears of the Kingdom just because of the daunting size of the game.
Well, originally wasn't like Tears of the Kingdom like wasn't it meant to be like DLC that they just kept adding on to?
I don't
Because
doubt it,
there's like a
but I
lot of
don't know.
the I haven't played any of it outside of the like the tutorial area or whatever, but a lot of what I've seen is like they just pretty much took like the bomb mechanics and everything, like the stasis and everything from the first game, and like swapped it for a different mechanic. But like everything else seems to be. I don't want to say this in a bad way that it's the same, but like they just took what they already had and kind of built onto it. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I just feel like it started out as like initially as like a DLC that they just kept building onto. But I feel like that
It's more of a DLC than Breath of the Wild ever had. Amiibo drop-ins, essentially.
yeah. I just feel like though like I don't know anything story wise, but that feels like a game where like, they at least need like a third one, like a trilogy.
Mm.
And I think maybe they're holding off on. I mean, we might hear something about it with the Switch too. There was like evidently some leaks over the past couple of days with Pokemon that kind of like hinted at the code name for the next Switch and everything. So
Hmm.
I don't
yeah,
know.
I saw some images leak online of potentially what it looks like, and they look pretty real. They look pretty similar to the first Switch, but more just refined. And but there's like they showed like concept like magnetic locks for the Joy Cons instead of those clickings and stuff. That's a cool feature.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah,
I didn't see that.
Tears
Cool.
yeah, Tears of the Kingdom, very much definitely it feels built on top of Breath of the Wild for sure, but then also reconstructed in a lot of areas where they just kind of destroy something or put a town or something there. Um, Sometimes it can feel like DLC, but then you look at like how much they added to it, and then the additional like biomes, I'll say, and it's like okay, maybe even if this is DLC, it's like $70 worth of DLC. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
definitely feels like a part two to Breath, but it's better in a lot of ways. It's also like I don't know, I won't get too far into it, but back to your question though, Barrett, like, do you think they've kind of exhausted that model? I think they have for this overworld. Like, I don't want to see another Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild in that same overworld. Like they'd have to like utterly destroy it, or maybe if they broke it into like islands and like changed biomes and stuff, they could really do a lot with it. But at this point, I'm like, I get the style of how you play it, and I think that probably won't go anywhere. Like the kind of Tears of the Kingdom interactivity or Breath of the Wild interactivity, and just like being able to hunt and chop down trees and have all these resources. But I think they're gonna have to like build a new world for that to happen in. And I'm down for that, especially if I get like a Wind Waker sequel. So,
Well,
That's what I was
that's
thinking.
what
Was a like a Toon Link open world.
oh man, dude, don't.
dude,
That would,
that was my initial thought when you said something about breaking it up into islands, and I'm like, well, I was like, it would I would still like it to be like the same art style as Breath of the Wild, but like something more akin to gameplay wise of Wind Waker.
Mhm.
And I'm holding on to hope that like they're just holding off on like porting Wind Waker to the Switch until
Dude.
Switch 2 comes out.
Yeah.
Like that's like the one wish for like gaming that
fact-
I want right now is just Wind Waker on the Switch.
Yes, same. And that's arguably my least favorite Zelda game, but just because I got stuck on it as a kid and never got my redemption with it. So I'm like at a point where I'm so ready to give it another shot. But they skipped the fact that they've skipped over the Wii U and the Switch with that game blows my mind.
It was on Wii U.
Thinking of Breath of the
It was on Wii U.
Oh, I'm sorry. Skipping from the Wii U to the Switch.
Oh, I got you.
'Cause
Yeah.
I just think of like Breath of the Wild being a Wii U game, and it made it to the Switch. And Wind Waker is one of like everyone's favorites. Like especially when you think of Toon Link, the first one that you think of is Wind Waker. Like I don't know, definitely.
I,
Like I don't know
I
why
would
it's not
love
on
to
the
see
Switch.
that.
Blows my mind. But I guess they still need to keep some sort of like value to the Wii U or something. I don't know.
Who
I don't
knows
know
what's
why
going on in there?
Nintendo makes the decisions that they make.
They're either stupid, they either got a lot of stupid decision makers, or they're just so much smarter than me and everybody I know that we just don't know how a company should be ran. I don't know. At this point, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know because it doesn't make sense to me. A lot
Yeah.
of stuff they
Yeah,
do. But
Nintendo in general just like it's such a like the two extremes. Like 95% of the games they make are all family friendly, but then their business practices aren't necessarily family friendly with like the way they refuse to like port over these older games or at least give us a way to purchase them and play
Make them
them.
accessible. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
all these things we want, and like I said, like I've mentioned before, like all the Pokemon games. Like if they just put those on the Switch, you could there would be millions of people that would just buy those individually instead of in a in a collected pack or on the ESO service. Like they could milk that for everything it's worth, and then just seems like there's no reason like why they're not.
man, we need HD 2D remakes. Is what we need. Like
I
the
actually
Dragon Quest.
I actually saw the other day some now this is more mod related, but like somebody had actually taken I think it was Soul Silver and like remade it in that 2D HD style
Mm.
and it looks really good.
That's cool. But yeah. So what about you guys though? What did you do? Anything this week enjoyable or highlight reel?
I finally made it to Act 2 of Ghost of Tsushima after like 50 hours gameplay.
Nice.
Like I pretty much got like
50
every
hours.
skill tree like maxed out. And
Do you
yeah,
feel? Does that bother you?
no, not really.
Okay.
I mean,
I was like, got no progression
As
left.
someone that hasn't played it, that bothers me. But I
oh,
want to play it.
it was one of those though
But
where like I was like dropped into it and it was like the same feeling as what Hogwarts Legacy was where I just wanted to go search everything before I even
Mm.
touched any story missions. And but yeah, there's like map wise, there's like three main sections of the map and I was like almost maxed on everything before I even made it to the second part.
Yeah.
And I don't like I said I don't this is one of the few games where I haven't looked up like a walkthrough or anything, so I don't know how many acts there are or how many story missions there are. I just know that I'm just now on Act 2, and I've loved every bit of it. I'm almost to a point of like not burnout, but like exhaustion on parts of it. But like I still love every bit of it. It's like one of my favorite things about it so far has just been the traversal, being able to
Mhm.
like jump on like various different objects and like it actually being able to animate all of that without it
Mhm.
just looking wonky.
Yeah. They're so good at that sucker punch. Like it feels a little bit like Infamous, where you kind of
Yeah.
had like almost you felt like you were magnetized to like railings and stuff when you went to jump on them. and they took that from Sly Cooper, where if
Yeah.
you guys remember, you press like circle midair and you would land on those little points, and they basically pushed that all the way into Ghost of Tsushima, at least in my opinion. And yet the traversal's great, and then like just like gathering materials while on horseback and stuff, just is like so smooth. Like you're not doing that. Okay, you don't stop and then have to hold triangle and gather it. Like it just everything feels like it was made to feel good. Like they spent it, like the menus, just the user interface, the
Yeah.
menus when you're navigating it, like feels awesome and fast and just so smooth and clean. Um,
And it
now,
never gets in the way either. Like there's only just what you need, and that's it. Like there's not a lot of like quest markers and all
mhm.
that. So I've loved it.
And the HUD like shuts off a lot to where you don't see any health bars, you don't see nothing. It's just the graphics of the game, and I love that. I love that. Like Elden Ring is one of my favorite games, but you can't turn off the effing compass unless you turn off the whole HUD permanently, which then you can't see your health no matter what. So you have this bar like right here is where it sits the whole game, just right in the middle of the screen. You're like, no, oh my god, just let me turn off the compass. But anyway, Ghost doesn't do that. But something I realized, Brandon, let me know if you agree with this. And I was gonna this hopefully this fully even further sells Barrett on it. But I think Ghost of Tsushima is actually in a lot of ways an awesome like Star Wars Jedi game. And like I know that
I've
the
heard
Jedi
this.
yeah, and I hadn't, but I was just playing it and I thought about it because I'd heard Star Wars and Samurai and all that stuff, but I was like, oh, this is like you guys talked a lot, especially you, Barry. You talked a lot about like the values of a Jedi and like
Hmm.
that it's kind of that samurai code, and like I just realized I was like, oh, this is so cool. That's what you are in this game. And then there's the combat and the katanas and everything, of course, and I was like, oh, this is like these are the things like Barrett and Brandon really love about Star Wars. But of course, it's more obviously realistic. But I was like, man, this with a Star Wars setting, like, would be the perfect Jedi game. Even maybe more so than like Fallen Order or
Yeah.
Survivor. Just
It's
because
like if they turned that uh oh shit, what is it? The Star
Outlaws.
Wars Visions, the Star Wars
Oh yeah,
Visions
yeah, yeah.
episode
Yes.
1.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like if
dude.
they turned that into like
Yes,
and they took that and did a game with it. Because
yeah.
I know that Ghost of Tsushima, whenever they were developing it, it's heavily based on Kurosawa films, which
Hmm.
is what George Lucas used.
Right.
That's what he used to like influence Star Wars too. So they're like basically based on the same thing. So like it
Yeah.
gives the Star Wars vibes because like at the heart of Star Wars is a Kurosawa film.
Yeah. You said that, and it made me instantly because I remembered this game's on PC, and I'm like, there's probably a lightsaber mod for this.
Oh,
For
I'm
sure.
looking on Mod Nexus, and I don't see one, but that's not to say there's not one there. But yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
perfect for that.
Ghost of Tsushima is towards the top of my list of stuff to play, especially
It should
when I
be.
get my portal. Whenever I'm not like sitting in here, I don't know. I've had a problem like connecting with my PS5 in the last few weeks. So
Yeah, I'm only saying this because we've already kind of mentioned it, but like when I started playing this game, like the first hour and a half of it, my first thought was like, man, this is everything that I wanted Breath of the Wild to be. And I know it came out like a few years after, so there's probably some inspiration. But like, there's a few scenes where like you're riding through the field on horseback, where it's like feels like it was taken like directly like adapted from Breath of the Wild's like trailer or something. There's a few different scenes, but like that it for the most part, like everything about it is what I wanted Breath of the Wild to be.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I think too, I'm excited for you to play the Icky Island expansion, which almost feels like a full sequel. Like that island is maybe one third or half the size of the main game's open map. So it's huge, but it's even more like Breath of the Wild. I'm trying to think how to say this without doing any spoilers, but the way you get pieces of the narrative in the DLC is a lot more like, oh, you discover that by going to like certain points of interest and stuff in the game. So you can like experience it in any order, which I thought was really cool about Breath of the Wild was like, going and finding those memories and stuff. And then they add like several new types of gameplay and cooler items and armors. And then there's some PlayStation crossover armors
Yeah.
in Icky Islands. So yeah, no, I'm really,
Cool.
really glad you're enjoying that.
I
Yeah, Bear,
know.
I think it's like totally your game
Yeah.
too.
I would say if anything, like you don't have to commit like 20, 30 hours play it. Just like download
I'm
it and
gonna
just
want to though.
possibly.
There's
But
no way. That's one
but
of
that's a
that's one
good
of those
thing.
games I want to reserve that for. Like I want to do
Hey,
that with that game.
sometimes you just
Um,
gotta rip off the band-aid and do it. That's what I've
yeah.
that's what I've figured out. Cause like some of the streaming stuff, like I'll get to a point where it's like, man, I really want to stream this game, but I gotta like here's how I want to like lay everything out, do it episode by episode or whatever. But like sometimes you come across a game like this, like it's just it don't matter where you're at, what you're doing, just play
hmm
it. And then like I said, if anything, just give it an hour and see like you can always come back to it later, but
hmm
it's definitely one you
You
shouldn't sleep
say,
on.
no. Now,
I,
I will say this. Here's a good thing about it. Nothing is missable. So let's say you decide to do some of the side quests and you're like, okay, this is going to take me 100 hours, and you jump over to the main quest line. It's not like, oh, I gotta have to do a new game plus to go get those missions I missed. Like they did such a good job making sure there's not any collectibles, quests, anything that you can miss and not go back to.
good.
Um, so and that's a big thing for me, like when talking about doing like the completion runs and trying to get everything. I hate when you can miss a chest down some path where rubble falls. It's like, no, make sure I can go back through the map at 100% each area. And a lot of games do that now, but I think we all remember a time when you could miss stuff and just be like, well, that's gone now.
Yeah.
Not getting that
Yeah.
shield.
Yep.
But
I know later on we're going to talk about some bad game mechanics, but for that game for Ghost of Tsushima, like two of my favorite mechanics is just the like the way they guide you to waypoints and stuff is like
Yes.
it's through the wind. So like instead of
Mhm.
having like an arrow or anything pointing you a certain direction, like you can literally see the wind moving that's going to move like that direction.
That's cool.
And like
It's awesome.
you can like turn down the sensitivity of it too if like it's too distracting. But and it's like a quick swipe up on the touchpad to like cause a wind gust to like come through.
It's
So
so cool.
that's one thing. And then if you if you are like a player that wants to get all the collectibles and stuff, there's like one specific outfit you can wear that like when you get like within a certain range of a collectible, you'll have a lightning bug like show up on like close to your shoulder that just like it'll pulsate. And the closer you get, like the faster it'll pulsate. So it's like those two mechanics are something that functionally works really well, but it's not too intrusive to everything that's going on. Like it's not like a big sign that pops up, like a big neon sign. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
go here. It's just
That's
it
cool.
doesn't ruin the immersion for you. Like it keeps you in.
Hell yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that feature. That is one of the best waypoint systems in any game ever. Probably the best. And what's cool is like you can go to your map, right? So you don't get frustrated. It's not like, okay, there's no epic map. I don't know where to go. It's like there's still a map and you can put markers on it, but it just influences that wind, right? So it's just all of a sudden you put a marker down, you get out of the menu, and you'll see the wind blow that direction, and it's all these like leaves and stuff. You're like, well, that's the way to go. So there's never, like Brandon said, there's never that big tower of light anywhere.
hmm
And it just, even though it's like minor, it's doing the same thing, right? It's like pointing you exactly to where you need to go, but it still feels like you're exploring. And yeah, I cannot overstate how cool that is. And then you can unlock different wins later that lead you to specific things. Like, okay, I want to find more cosmetic items like armors and sword sheets. You can unlock that and select it. And just when you're out in the open world, when you don't have a marker set down, it'll just always, the wind will pick up every now and then. It'll be like, oh, there's a sword customization item that direction. and then you still have to find
Yep.
it and figure it out. It's so cool. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, Bear, what about you, man? What's something good?
Um, me and Kanan have both been playing a lot of Animal Crossing this week.
Nice.
It's been real chill, real relaxed. Doing the Halloween stuff in Animal Crossing. It's been fun.
That's awesome.
Been, I am gonna say it is a good thing to um, motivate me to keep working on it, but I restarted my game on Pokemon Scarlet like 2 weeks ago, maybe, and I'm about to complete the story on it and working on building myself back up. And I made a mistake restarting that game. I should have just like watched videos to like remind me of mechanics and stuff instead of like being like I should play the whole game again. So I'm more refamiliarize myself because that's been a whole thing, but it's been fun. Um, and then honestly, I've had the most fun the last few days playing Bioshock Infinite, just revisiting that world. Like those have been like the three main games that I'm playing as far as like video games. And Bioshock Infinite, I'm probably halfway through it now, and it's just so good. I have a funny like history with that game because the first time I played through it, I quit on the Songbird fight with the Zeppelins, if you know what I'm talking about. Didn't realize that when I quit that was the end of the game. So like I picked it up probably a year or two later and was just like, I'll just replay through it and made it through that fight first try and basically got the end cutscene and was like, what the fuck? I was that close this whole time. Now I'm playing through it. I'm not using a guide or anything, but I'm being really observant, just like walking, taking my time in each area and finding all the different voxophones and just enjoying it, taking it all in because I love Bioshock so much, and that one was really fucking good. Um, and I'm just like I don't know, a lot of it's been we've got our living room set up, which has just been really nice because we haven't had like a living space to like chill and watch TV comfortably. So now that we've got that set up, it's been nice to just sit in there and play my Xbox or play my Switch while Kanan will be playing Animal Crossing on the TV and I'll be playing on my Switch. So just been a cozy week for me. Nothing too wild. Um, I was telling Brandon before we started that I've been playing a lot of like the Pokemon TCG with people at work and have encouraged other staff and kids to get Pokemon decks. So that's becoming a thing. I don't know if I've told y'all before about like whenever I was growing up, I had this, I think it was probably in high school. I had this whole like year or two where I was on this kick where I was going to bring Pokemon back and ended up getting a bunch of people to get into the trading card game like during lunch in high school. And my parents always used to give me shit leaning into the whole like I brought Pokemon back thing. Just to, and I was telling Kanan about how like everybody at work's getting it. She's like, "You did it again. You brought it back."
That passion is just contagious. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. I think that's what it is. Because,
It really is, though, dude.
but I've been having a lot of fun with that. So
Who's your favorite Pokemon?
Chandelure.
Maybe. Oh, that's a cool
The
kid. That says a lot
yeah,
about you. That's an awesome
the
Pokemon.
edgy ghost
It's
Chandelier
weird.
Pokemon.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
I hated it when it first came out, and then
really.
it just like yeah, I hated it, but I just was like, why did I pick such a cool Pokemon to hate on?
Is that
What
is that
happened?
Litwick's evolution?
Yeah,
I love Litwick. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, what about you, Brandon? What's your favorite?
Scyther, but
Scyther was cool. Like Cypher was one of the coolest out of the first 150.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
But the only thing, don't as the first game goes though, the only thing he's good for is against like psychic Pokemon,
yeah,
because that like
grass type man. bug type.
Or other bugs. She's got flying type moves in there.
Yeah. Who's
But
who's your favorite, Nick?
Yeah, I started thinking about it when I asked y'all, and I was like, God, there's so many Pokemon now. Uh, I liked. Let me think.
Have you
Yes,
played like all the different
I-
generations or?
not all of them. I haven't played Scarlet and Violet. I think I played pretty much everything up until then. Um, Now there's one I'm trying to think of. Let me see if I can look around this room and something remind me of what it was. Uh, Gosh, I'll say, um, man, I'm really having a hard time with this one actually. Let me see. Of the 150 original, I would say Dratini was probably my favorite. I've always loved Eevee though. I think I would, I'll say Eevee and just the evolutions of it. Like I pick a different favorite out of those evolutions, but like Eevee,
As long as you don't say
uh,
Vaporeon, we're good.
I mean, so why, first of all?
Uh,
But
it
I
it's just
wasn't gonna say,
it's just a meme.
yeah.
is everybody's favorite is Vaporeon? Is that what it is?
No,
Or
There,
it's a gross meme. It's no.
no, okay, no. I like I mean, Vaporeon's got a great design. Jolteon was one of my favorites. Oh, and then I remember, uh, what were the
That's my favorite Eevee.
Game Boy, the 3DS ones?
X and Y, Sun
X
and
and
Moon.
Y introduced that fairy type, and
Mm-hmm.
the pink one, I can't remember what it was called. But that was my favorite for a
All the
while.
fairies are pink.
Well, no, there's only one pink Eevee though.
Oh,
oh, Sylveon.
Sylveon.
Yeah, Sylveon.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just so uh definitively like sugar plum,
Mhm.
pink and flowers. I ended up just loving it because then you
I
do like
love
this
its
like,
ribbons will like hold. It'll hold its trainer's hands with its ribbons.
and it was hard to evolve, right? Didn't you have to have like max
Friendship.
friendship during the daytime?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it just felt uh it was a new Eevee evolution, so I instantly was like excited about that. I'm always excited to see Eevee evolutions. By the way, did they add any in Scarlet and Violet?
No.
Oh, that's a crime. There needs to be like 100 Eevee evolutions. And I love the fan designs for all the different
Yeah.
ones they haven't done yet. Those are
It'll be one
always
for every
fun.
type.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm glad you're getting
Yeah. I want to see a dragon
those.
and a ghost type
Oh,
Eevee.
Dragon type, man.
You mentioned Dratini being one of your favorites, and I want to just bring up Kanan and our friend Tabitha's concept because they thought of an alternate version of a Dragonair evolution. So instead of Dragonite, you have a dragon fairy type that looks more like the first two evolutions rather than a big doofy orange Barney, you know?
Yeah, dude, I know what you're talking about.
But like, if it was a dragon fairy type and it just was a big serpent
Mm.
looking Pokemon, it would be so cool. 'Cause it
We'll
just
have
looks
to
like it
have
should have fairy in its typing, especially like Dragonair's little like like Hermes wings on its head or whatever it is.
mhm.
It just looks like it should be a I don't know, and that would be a broken typing. That would be so cool.
That would be awesome. That would be broken too, because isn't Dragon weak against Fairy?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, that'd be cool. We have to talk sometime just about like cool types they could add that we want that don't exist today.
Well,
And then
Dude,
also the most offensive types in Pokemon to where you're like, how is this not dragon slash grass? It's like it's
oh,
just a grass Pokemon or it's a ground
like
Pokemon. And
Gyarados.
yeah, and it's like made of
Talk
rock.
about Gyarados
Yeah,
awful typing.
dude, you're just like,
Yeah.
what happened here? Like, what happened in the decision making process to where y'all,
Oh, that
this
would
is,
be such a great conversation.
dude,
yeah,
we could do a whole stream on Pokemon. I'm sure.
yeah, just
Yeah.
what type would you be? What type of Pokemon are you? Yeah, we could
Hmm.
do some fun stuff with that. I'll make a note.
Oh yeah.
I
Good
uh
idea.
I
Pokemon stuff.
mentioned I mean I mentioned that Scyther's my favorite, but with like Scarlet and Violet, they probably introduced probably like close second with Annihilate.
Dude,
Annihilate.
It's like
Let me see
yes,
this.
same.
Okay,
Same.
hold
so
on, let me look this
he's
up.
like a third evolution to Primate, and
His Pokedex entry is the most metal shit.
it's the coolest one. Like
Wait, I'm looking this up. Oh wow,
like
dude,
so
he looks.
so the Pokedex entry is essentially that he gets himself so mad that he just like dies and comes back as a ghost.
That. Let me read this. Hold on. Um, introduced is also let's see here referred to. Okay, where's the biology or whatever in animation? There's simian. Okay, where's like evolved from primate? Okay, where's like just like the basic. Here we go. Okay, wait. Okay, I'm not finding like the description, but I see it, and it does look kind of like a ghost type with that levitating hair. So it just gets
He's
so
like, he looks
enraged.
like he's going Super Saiyan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he looks
Well,
like
well, even the
someone.
move, he's got like a move called Shadow Punch, which is almost like
A
Ultra
Rage
Instinct.
Fist.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, there's a Shadow Punch too, where it like he like pops up behind an enemy or something like that.
Oh,
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's almost like Ultra Instinct in Dragon Ball,
Mm-hmm.
just being able to pop up. But I've
Yeah,
actually
not.
been surprised where like I'll be the first one to say I've been hard on like the last two generations of games, but like both Generation 8 and 9 have introduced Pokemon that have like instantly been in my top five. Like Generation 8 with like Dragapult is like
Yeah.
a ghost dragon, and his
You add
head,
ghost typing to anything, and it's
yeah,
instantly cool.
oh for sure.
Dragapult. Let me see. I gotta see this one too. Oh yeah, no, I actually really like that one. I loved. Having to work really hard in Sword and Shield to get one of those. I love the ghost tail too.
Yeah.
That it just kind of
Mhm.
And the
fades
fact
out.
that it just shoots its babies at you.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, I think there's a complicated relationship with whatever those are. I'm like, is babies or like but yeah,
But like
that's
I,
cool.
I wasn't as big for whatever reason. I don't know why, but like there's not as many from like Gen 4 to 7 that I'm as big a fan of. But it's like pretty much all
Yeah,
my favorites are like Gen 3 or lower. But like those two are from the newest gens that like instantly as soon as I saw them, like these are in my top five at least.
Yeah, I think Ruby and Sapphire are probably my favorite gens. Maybe it's just because when they came out and that they were, I don't know. I just remember that generation a lot and all the stuff they added to the games. I also love the
well,
remakes.
I'd have to say Johto. Just Gen 2 involving both Gen 1 and Gen 2 with the games where you got to go through a new game and then it's like, surprise, you get to go through the last game again too.
Yeah.
Like, I want a Let's Go Johto type game so
Mm.
bad just because I loved that. So I don't know, going through and
Is that gold
getting
and
16
silver?
badges and yeah, gold and silver.
Okay, gotcha.
It's like I started on red and blue, but gold and silver, by the time I got to it, I knew what I was doing. So it was just a
Yeah.
really
Same.
nice full game. I don't know. Feel like there was a lot there.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's some good stuff, guys. Um, well, I think we should jump into some of the topics we have picked out.
Hmm.
Personally, Brandon, I want to start with yours. Can we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, we can. So
Is that okay, Barrett?
I'm good with that.
Yeah. So, Brandon, I'm gonna let you better say what this is, but it's regarding character design, particularly in video games. But what's this topic? Describe it for me.
so what really generated this thought was, and not to harbor on the negativity too much, but there's been a lot over the past like 6 months to a year of just either one stream or the other of thoughts on what the main character should look like. So
Need some coffee.
like the first character that kind of popped into my mind was with Stellar Blade, just like the polarity of that, where it's like on one hand like it's not conservative enough, on the other hand like and we need every like there's like a portion of the fan base like, well, we need every game to like our protagonist to look like this. Um,
Hmm.
but just like from Stellar Blade to like Star Wars Outlaws, like with their character,
NG5.
yeah,
Hmm.
and with like the complaints around Aloy not being attractive enough in Horizon. So I'm just kind of I'm just more curious of what effect does the main character have on you guys when it comes to like
Hmm.
either being interested in something or like or,
Disinterested.
or disinterested in the sense of like how much would it affect you like being interested in the game or buying it or whatever.
Hmm.
I know for me like overall I'm not the type that's going to go out of my way to like want a character to look like Eve and Stellar Blade, but I will say it's a positive. Like it made me more interested in it. But that
In
wouldn't
what
be the
sense?
just anytime you have like an
Yeah,
attractive
Brandon, elaborate
character,
on that.
Yeah, totally.
just
Yeah. What do you mean?
anytime you have like an attractive main character that obviously you're going to be spending 20 to 30 hours looking at, I'm more inclined to go with something like that. But
No, I get what you're saying.
I would
You're saying
not
like
buy the game
it's nice to
because
have
of
an
it.
attract. Yeah. This is an awesome question, awesome topic. I agree. I like being attracted to the character, but what makes me attracted to them isn't always. And I know you're not saying there's a specific thing. It's not always the same thing. Um.
Well, and not to interrupt
I-
too much, but
mhm,
like
mhm.
another facet of it is with like something like Horizon. Um, I would say that like on the surface, like Aloy is not like conventionally attractive, but given the setting of like where they're at, what life is like for those people, it makes sense that like she's not heavy on makeup or anything like that. Like it makes
Thank
sense.
God.
So um
Yeah.
so it's like I guess when it comes to um functionality versus just, you know, being appealing for the sake of it.
Yeah. Like I think like the first part of your question is like how much bearing does the character design have on my desire to play a game? Yeah, I never really thought about that, honestly. I think to me, ultimate matters what you're doing in the game. Most of all, I think there are certain character designs that would turn me off. Like I don't know how many video game covers I've seen where it's a soldier looking over their shoulder and they're in like military garb, and I'm like, no knock towards that, but it's like, okay, that's like video games are this fan for me is fantastic. Saying like, I get tired of seeing like somebody in camouflage or body armor. It's like, no, give me something more fantastic, like really interesting. Um, I think for me, I just want to see that the character's design tells like a story. Hey, all, we're back. Sorry, it looks like that actually wasn't our fault. I think Discord crashed because we all got kicked out and couldn't get back in. But it gave some of us a much needed restroom break. But anyway, um,
Yeah.
we were talking about video game character design. What draws you into games? Like how much does the character design matter and everything? I shared some thoughts, and those will still be in the the video. But I'll pass Barrett, I'm gonna pass it off to you for a second. Like, what just initially, what do you care about with like character design?
Well, I know at least from like to think like what games I was drawn into like specifically because of character design, and Final Fantasy is such a huge like their art
Mm,
for their characters in those early games was such a like I don't know with all the sharp features and stuff like something about that really drew me into those games, and then so it was like character first and then getting past that to like okay what are these games actually about. So like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy,
mm,
just strictly on character design being like the first thing that I had caught about him. Um, I think, I mean, my favorite game, Hunt Showdown, a big thing that keeps me in it is all the cool character design. They come up with a bunch of cool hunters. I don't know,
Mhm.
just something about like having, I don't know, a sick looking character is, especially with a game like Hunt where there's no story, so it doesn't really matter what they're really, there is a story, but there's not like, it's not in the front. So it is based on, yeah, the rule of cool, which I don't know. I'm definitely a proponent to that. Yeah, I don't know. Some of my favorite games, mostly I feel like I was drawn into just because they had like cool character design. But that wasn't what I was thinking getting into it. It's just like I don't know, it naturally like pulled me in that way, I guess. Like I think because I just think of like box art, like the, whether it's from the Final Fantasy or BioShock, like
Mm,
BioShock's box art with the Big Daddy on the front of it.
yes. Oh,
Something about like that looks cool as fuck. How could you not want to play that based on like that design?
yeah.
Uh, or Assassin's Creed with the early game, like just just to remember the first look at what an assassin in Assassin's Creed looked like.
Hmm.
Assassin's Creed 1 and then 2 with Ezio, like something about the rule of cool, man. Those are for some reason, and like now, I mean, I know they could still do it, but I feel like it's harder to get by with cool box art these days with a cool character on the front of it because there's been plenty of games that, yeah, they look cool, but I don't know, I feel like there's too much cool. There's something else I bring up. Oh, like um, the hunter design in Bloodborne, one of the
Mm.
biggest. I mean, that the hunter's garb specifically. Um, I don't know. I just love those, and those are all games that like the character was really cool. I got drawn into the game, and it worked for me because I ended up liking the game too. Like then there's games like Final Fantasy 13 where all the characters in that game looked awesome, but I remember just not being into the game whatsoever. So I don't know. Yeah, those are, I mean, those are examples of games that I was drawn to more so just because like cool character design. Um, yeah.
How important is it for either of you to be or to like to be able to like see yourself or relate to the character?
Not at all. Let
I
me.
don't have to.
Yeah, I think I feel strongly about this. Like, I am not there for myself. Like, I am there to experience something. I think I always find something I relate to with a character, but like, I always find something I relate to with people I get to know as well, right? So it's like, you know, that doesn't mean that like, oh yeah, I like this because I can see myself in this character, but you can empathize with their feeling or what they're not feeling, whatever it is. But I, you know, in games where you can make the character, um, I get a sense of satisfaction though in those, like let's say Bloodborne, Mass Effect, whatever, giving them like kind of like my features, but more maybe idealized, proportions or something in my perspective. I like that, and I think that makes sense for like silent protagonists and stuff like that. And but other times I'll just make a character I think is cool. Most of the time I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna give them, blue skin and just really cool features and scars and tattoos and stuff like that. um, but yeah, I don't need it. I do need to be able to care about the character in some way, but I don't need to be able to see myself.
I want to be able to like respect them, respect their values, maybe like align with some of their values, like, but like I don't care that they represent some big part of me or like my life story. Um, I don't know. I like characters like I mean any of the Star Wars Jedi games with Cal. Like I like I like those games because he's a strong character that has like good morals and a really strong backstory that like I enjoy, but doesn't make or break a game necessarily. Like I don't know. I don't feel like I need to be in the role of the main character. I'm playing the game. I don't know. I like to like for them to have like a good journey, but I don't know. It doesn't matter to me that like even with character design, I skip over almost every game if I can skip over the character. If I especially if I'm putting on armor. But like even in the Mass Effect games, I
Mhm.
played mostly because like if you super like went into detail with like designing Commander Shepard, the animation of his face would get all shitty whenever he was talking in scenes
Yeah.
because
That's so
you've
true.
got it's like layers of makeup on pretty much. But like I've always honestly, even outside of like I don't know, just outside of like what the character goes through, like even character design, I don't even try to make it look anything like myself and skimp over a lot of character customization in most games I play, just because that's sometimes there's probably a one-off one or two where I'll like, okay, I'll sit with the character design for a second, but as soon as I've got to do like in-depth like cheeks and nose and mouth and eyes and all that stuff. Ugh, I don't give a fuck. Give the most generic looking guy that you know isn't doesn't look completely stupid, and then let's go default.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon?
Well, when it comes to like character creation, like I for the most part stay away from like trying to design it in a way that looks like me. So like with something like uh Skyrim, for example, like pretty much every playthrough, like 90% of the playthroughs I've done of Skyrim, like I'm usually an Argonian.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're like resistant to sicknesses, and you can
yeah,
swim underwater. Why
yeah.
would you not want that?
Plus, there's
You
also
could
like
swim
this.
underwater?
There's a there's like this cool
Well,
like
like
face
you can
paint for
breathe
the.
underwater. No.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you saying, Brandon?
With the Argonians, there's this one face paint you can wear that like it puts like this stripe like over your eyes, and if you
Hmm.
wear a hood, it almost looks like a Ninja Turtle. So it's kind of
Hmm.
like that's the way I kind of play it. It's like I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's like one story for TMNT of the Last Ronin, and that's kind of like what I go through with like that play style with that character, anyways. And then even in something like Starfield, I think the first playthrough of it I did um when it comes to Bethesda, like Todd Howard's almost like this meme within the community. So like I just randomly creating a character and come across like this like I think it was like a hairstyle or something in the game that like looks like Todd Howard. So I just like role played the whole game as if I was like a young Todd Howard.
That's
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 awesome.
kind of cool, actually. Yeah.
But
So, oh, go ahead, man.
no, no, go ahead.
I was just, I was just gonna say, like in the example, you like Stellar Blade is a great example because it's so much conversation about it, and you're gonna feel it's what's the word, evocative, right? You're gonna
Yeah.
look at it and you're gonna think something, whether it's negative or positive, it grabs your attention, and it's like I think I liked it. Obviously, it's an attractive character, like uh, uh, objectively, right? I think that it's like got features that we've considered are idyllic, for hundreds of years or whatever. But to me, it's more interesting that they chose that character because you don't see those much anymore, right? So I looked at it and I thought, okay, there was a time when like every female character, let's say, was kind of like going for these proportions and stuff, and then like we don't see that much as much these days, right? Whereas maybe it's this the sexuality's toned down or the design's toned down. It's a little bit more down to earth or grounded um or relatable to what maybe what most people look like. So to me, it became unique that they did this character and they're like, hey, this isn't you. It's definitely not me. And like, hey, this is what it looks like, and we're going all in on that. And that felt unique now because we don't see it as much anymore, you know? It's so cool in that, like, you know, the clothing design, you know, is well put together, a lot of thought, and artistically well done. I like that. On the other hand, um, I do get really annoyed with the over sexuality being put in your face constantly. Barrett, you still there? Did we lose you?
Well, Discord was kind of acting up for a second, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Barrett,
it
you
was
still
kind of
there?
yeah. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Felt
Yeah,
like it
but
was chunking up your audio a little bit there for a minute. I don't know if it
Yeah,
was just me, but
yeah, it sounded a little robotic for a second.
oh, it's okay. You're running. It's all running now. But like so it's like Stellar Blade though, it does get annoying at a certain point when that becomes like the focus and the focus for very obvious reasons. And you're like, I just want to play this because it's a fantasy or because it's sci-fi. And yeah, do I like considering the character attractive? Sure, absolutely. I don't want to play as a character I don't find appealing in some way. Um, but yeah, that's a great example. But in my opinion, of a character that you brought up, Brandon. But yeah. So what else about this question though? You know, like what are
Mm.
some of your favorite? What are some of your favorite characters? Maybe designs.
I really like
Either of you guys.
the reboot of God of War with Kratos. Like,
Mm,
probably one of my
that's a good
favorites.
one. Why do you like that?
Uh, just I think just because of like their ability to take one like mythology and transport one of those characters into a different mythology and like make it all make sense or at least
Mm,
show the adaptation.
yeah. But what about you, Barrett? Like, I know you mentioned a Final Fantasy. Would you say like is Cloud at the top of that list, or is BioShock in there?
mm, I mean, there's like I feel like there's probably like 4 or 5 Final Fantasy characters tied for first as far as like just visual appeal, like how cool they do look. Um, I don't know. I always like Zach, obviously, with like his hair at the end of the way it looks whenever it's longer. The one little strand coming down on the front, and like how they've like stylized that in the old art style too. Um, Another thing I forgot to mention though, as far as like cool looking character, Borderlands. Borderlands, like a lot of the um vault hunters that you get to choose from, especially in the first game, like what Mordecai and Lilith. I don't know, with the cell shading art, more like really cool. Like it wasn't necessarily like box art because I think the box art was like a Psycho or something, but
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I know like as far as like favorite character designs, I mean, yeah, Final Fantasy with Cloud, Zack, Vincent. Um, any like
So yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I can't really like. I know there's Kingdom Hearts. I mean, I always like Sora. Like Sora, especially in Kingdom Hearts 2, his black outfit with the red accents and all the different like chains and stuff that were going across that. The forms that you would get, the final form that you would get, like really fucking cool designs. I
Mhm.
think the final form we've got Keyblades going
Yeah.
around you and stuff, dude. Oh,
Yeah.
or
The
the
white
Shadow
suit.
Sora that you would, yes,
Oh
the
yeah.
white suit. Um,
I think we
that's
may
probably some of my favorite character design.
I think we maybe mentioned it before, but like I don't know. I feel like with Sora, do you think it was intentional that he's got like big clown shoes to like Cause like there's like a few of his outfits where he kind of like mimics Mickey, where like he's got like a dark shirt, red pants, and then like the yellow shoes. I'm like, this had to be intentional, like as an avatar to Mickey. Like,
Well,
Mm.
when they created Sora, they were trying to create a Mario-esque like character that is their
Mm.
mascot kind of character that like, and because originally they were gonna just do Disney characters for
yeah,
Kingdom Hearts, and Square kind of worked up the idea that they need to have like their own character that is the face of this game. So his design definitely comes intentional from like Mickey and Mario, where it's like he kind of has that like, I don't know, I guess similar color wheel of, and design shirt and pants, the way it's set up, the big shoes to match like Mickey's big shoes. Yeah, for sure. 'Cause I feel like if he had regular size feet in a world full of just overly animated character models, maybe it would be weird. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't.
well
But
that's
you
one
think
thing
of
that's
Sora with regular size feet?
well
He
that
kind of does too.
that's one of my curiosities with like Kingdom Hearts 4 is like
Mm.
there's been
Oh,
some of what they've shown has been more realistic, and I'm
mm-hmm.
curious if like that version's there if they do go with like smaller feet or something, there needs to be like some kind of like joke in there about it, like somehow like some way of mentioning it.
His
Like
feet
what
are
can be check
smaller
up with
in Kingdom
Sora,
Hearts
Yeah.
2, though. Like y'all noticed
Goofy,
that,
and
right?
Donald meet Sora from Kingdom Hearts 4, and they're like, "What happened to your feet?" It's like the first thing they
Mhm.
say.
That would be cool. His feet are smaller in the second game, though. Like if you look at his design,
They are
those
definitely
shoes
smaller than the first one.
they're still chunky though.
They're still huge.
Yeah.
It's still like a shoe that's like almost like maybe he's got a normal size foot and a really padded shoe. It's just a lot, so he doesn't roll his ankle.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah. When he's skateboarding and stuff. Um.
Yeah, or fighting Heartless. I mean,
Oh, that too. Yeah, I
you can
forgot
roll
about
your
that.
ankles doing many things.
Well, I was thinking of the skateboard in Kingdom Hearts 2, and then I was also thinking of I
Oh
don't know if y'all
yeah,
ever played The World Ends with You, or if you're familiar with that game, but that had a
yes.
lot of street skatery vibes to me. Um, but yeah, I don't know as much about the character design for Sora, but I would agree that it looks like it was definitely influenced by like the whimsical, innocent designs of Disney for sure. I mean, I can't think of too many other animations where they've got these big feet or hands with gloves and stuff, but and then just like exaggerated iconic proportions and stuff like that. Sora's a great character. I'll tell you one of my favorites though, and it's been a favorite for like a long time, but I never played the games, but Pyramid Head from Silent
Mm.
Hill. Now you want to talk about great character design. Like I looked at that and I thought, does this look like it was designed 30 years ago? And like, man, they just would have done such a better job today. And they didn't change like anything about it. Like it is just a big butcher with I mean, just from just the muscularness to the skin tone to the sword to then that just giant, what could be considered like an obnoxious metal casing. But like when you talk about like story, like you look at that and you just like, what is this thing? What happened to this thing? And it's just so metal. Like it just looks like it belongs in the front of like some metal album cover. And it's so
Hmm.
cool. It's one of my favorite designs. Like I want to get like a statue or something of Pyramid Head. Like just everything about it I love. Like I don't know really why. Like I couldn't explain it to you, but I'm like every time I see that character, I'm like, it is so cool. But that's a great example of like you don't that character has like no development, no personality besides the fact that it's menacing, but it's still one of my favorites
Hmm.
that I've ever seen. So I think a big part for me is just the art itself. Like that's the big piece. And then but that's what you're talking about, right? With design. Um with your with your question, Brandon. But then the rest of like keeping it. something I like and favorite, and then it comes down to like the story and the personality and how they're used in the game. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this
Yeah,
topic?
for sure. Uh, I don't.
No, I'm good.
Cool. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. So this is a fun one, topic, Barrett, you picked out. Um, and I was able to think of a thought for one of mine that's recently bothered me. But just like undesirable game mechanics, right? And I'll let you elaborate more about what you were thinking or what the question or topic is, Barrett. But yeah, pass it off to you.
Yeah, so the way I like to think about it, like think the way that I say the question, bad mechanics in an otherwise good game. So like
Mm,
get that's like mechanics that don't necessarily make the game bad, but you'll fight through it just to enjoy a good game. Um, I don't remember if I had anything specific in mind. I just knew that this would probably provoke like a fun conversation. Um, but like I don't know, I could think of like 20 different Destiny raids that, you know, put me through literal fucking hell, or you had to break the game to play it just to have a good time. Especially with Destiny 1. Um, or if they like, I mean, the hard target of, I feel like most of the things I bring up, but Kingdom Hearts has a number of bad mechanics, but for some reason,
That
still
was
love
my
that game.
that was my first thought when I saw your question.
That was honestly probably more of what I had in mind.
what
Um,
mechanics? Like which ones?
There are a
uh,
few specific levels, but like the worst one for me,
Tarzan? No, I'm sorry.
Atlantis.
screw the gummy
At
ships is all I'm saying.
Oh man.
the gummy ships, Atlantis, either whether it's a fucking full on musical or a traversable world, can just get the fuck out of here. Um, Kingdom Hearts 3 uses, instead of like, I think there might still be summons, but like you summon Disney rides as like
You don't like that?
AoE effects. No, no, I'm not. I'm also not a fucking. That's something that's like, okay, maybe it's not bad. If I was a Disney family and I had the season pass sticker on my fucking car, and we went to Disney 3, 4, 5 times a year, and we knew all those like I've rode a few of the rides, but like not enough to be like whenever I see it in a game, it brings me joy. I see it in a game, and I'm like, oh God. I mean, that's new and different, I guess, using a ride as a summon attack in Kingdom Hearts. It was just such a left field thing as far as a game mechanic because it felt like they were just trying to sell fucking Disney World tickets by putting them in that game. I don't know. That's like arguably the worst thing about Kingdom Hearts 3 to me, though, is the fact that they added that shit in.
I just think
Um,
it kind of like ruins immersion. Like it, I
yes.
mean, we're already in a fantasy world, but there's usually rules applied to the world, whether it be physics related, whatever. But that was just like one thing that like it just takes you out of it. I feel like this
Yeah.
this even in this fantasy world, this feels like it's unrealistic for that setting.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
not being able to walk and shoot at the same time in Resident
Oh,
Evil 4 and 5, you
oh,
know, that
yes.
having to stop to shoot. um, yeah, I mean, I could probably sit here and make a list of them, but like I know like Kingdom Hearts is my main topic on our main like target on that topic. It's just like there's a number of worlds that put you through hell, but you just want to get to the next cutscene because for some reason the story is so engaging that you'll like live through that hell.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
Square Enix games, dude, are like have some of that absolute BS. There's two like mechanics came to mind. When your health is low and the screen has that red border on it, and you're gonna
Anxiety.
like, well, it's not just, yeah, it's anxiety, but it's also just like, man, I sure would like to enjoy these great graphics. Too bad I've got this red border and my character, and if the character's running slower because of the low health, you're just like, okay, I guess I just won't be enjoying this game again until I get like a heal done. But I'm like, okay, I get it. I have low health. Maybe you just put something in the corner, a little symbol, like a little red circle or something, so that I know I'm about to die, or just show me
Or a
my health
chaotic
bar.
beeping.
Oh, just any of those alerts that last until you heal. I'm just like, please no. And a lot of games now have where you can customize that, but the other one that's just infuriating is when you get the ATB points in Final Fantasy VII and you use the move, but then you get hit and it interrupts the attack, and then you gotta it doesn't
And
execute.
you lose
Sometimes
the
it,
ATB points.
yeah, and you're like, like that. Now, Kingdom Hearts was. I remember that a lot of times throwing an elixir into the air, and Sora's literally looking up at it. Yeah, he's looking up at it, and it's
Yeah.
falling down, and then you get hit. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I was just like, I can't control the animation like speed, but then you get leaf veal or whatever it is in one of the games, and it makes you basically invincible. But yeah, those are ones that came to mind for me that they can go away.
Yeah, that
That
was
kind of
honestly
nonsense.
like some of the worst parts of Remake and Rebirth is like using an item right before you
Hmm.
trigger a specific cutscene in a boss battle or something, or healing
Mhm.
like right before you like randomly walk up on a bench. Just like total
Yeah.
waste of items.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
Honestly, hidden mechanics too,
Mm.
like EV training in the early Pokemon games, or like breeding or egg moves, all that stuff, like all the hidden stuff that are hidden in Pokemon games. They're like, yes, they're valuable assets, but the fact that they're hidden and you have to do all this research to be able to do them, and like anything before any of the Switch Pokemon games, I don't know. I don't
well,
like that because it made that type of like that way to play the game not interesting to me for a really long time until it was more involved in the full mechanics of the game.
yeah, I think the worst part of that in the earlier games is you have to battle specific types of Pokemon to build certain stats, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a cap on that, and there's no way to tell what you've already done or how many you've already done, how many you have left, and it's like
No way to reset it and start it back at zero just in case you fucked up somewhere along the way or something. Yeah.
and a system like that would work if like for one they never explain it in the game. Like that's something that
Yeah.
like you have to have like a game informer guide or some kind of guide to do it. But like I said, there's no way of knowing what's going on. And no way to reset it. But it would also make sense if like in the newer games you can see all the Pokemon in the overworld. But like back then it was all random. So like you would have something at the front of your party. Like you could go to a specific
And
area
you're
where
trying to
like
farm Geodudes.
yeah,
You're just trying to fight Geodudes. That's all you want to fight. So you can build that defense stat. And you keep running into fucking Diglets.
yeah.
And yeah. And then you can't run from it because you can't escape. You got to have an infinite number of Pokedolls or something just to be able to run from it.
Mm.
Yeah, just yeah.
I was just thinking that random encounters, generally in RPGs,
Yeah.
that used to take the wind out of my lungs when you don't have the patience for it. Like you're just like, let me just get through this cave. I have no mana left. I have no potions.
Mm-hmm.
I can't save. And that random encounter happens. Like, just wanted to stop breathing when it happened.
That's what I loved about Crisis Core is that in every area you could dodge random encounters. You knew exactly where you could run. It was like there was a halo around the map in every area, and if you just ran the edge of the area, you would never hit
Hmm.
random encounter because that same like random encounters definitely are taxing after a while. It's like, yeah, you use them to train up whatever you're doing, level up, and then you're just trying to get to the end of this fucking cave and you're about dead. And you just want to get to the, you know, the bench or the Pokemon Center on the other side just so you can heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least they do have the grass though, like those grass areas. At least let you know where you're
Right.
at. But
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
when you're in any of those caves, like you can't tell. Like it can just
Mhm.
happen anytime. But like I haven't played too many like older like turn-based RPGs like that. But like the few that I have, where I think something like Earthbound, it can literally happen anywhere. It don't matter where you're at.
Yeah.
Like there might be like a specific building or something you can go into, but like if you're anywhere on the overworld, it could just happen anywhere. And I don't like that.
Like, yeah, some of the Final Fantasy games, like 10, I love 10, but the pacing of it is hard just because of there's big areas that you get to where there's a lot of random encounters, and some of the random encounters you run into are gnarly, like especially
Mhm.
like late game stuff.
Mhm.
You'll end up in fights that you're not ready for, just randomly fucking pop up, and all you want to do is just get to the next town or whatever. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
That
Do you
I've never
guys?
really
I was
like
gonna.
a lot of the games I play have random encounters, but it probably is one of my least favorite mechanics to it.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, like you mentioned, we kind of got on topic a little bit of turn-based combat. What do you guys think of that? Like, and I asked the question. Like, a lot of people now are like, oh, either they miss it because it's not really in any games, like virtually not in any games, in a couple, or they're like so glad that's dead. And I really like it depending on the game. At least if I can see the random encounters, and as long as there's enough strategy to the combat, like I like that style, and it reduces a certain amount of stress that comes with, or stimulation that comes with real time combat. But what do you guys think?
I think for me, it depends on like the animation and like
Mm,
design of the game. Like if something like so to speak, if remake and rebirth were like strictly like turn based like the original, I don't think it would have been as good because it does look graphically it looks so good that like you wouldn't want to waste that on like you wouldn't want to that lack of animation that turn based
mhm.
can be would be a downside to it, I think. Where like
Can I?
something like Pokemon where like you're not going to get a lot of action sequences or a lot of different animations. Like I think turn based lends itself to that.
Mhm.
I kind of want to. I want to touch on that because I think quite the opposite. I love Final Fantasy VII and remake rebirth. I love the combat. I think it's awesome. It feels so good. But if there was I was so excited whenever I turned on Final Fantasy Remake the first time and saw that it had a classic mode, thinking that that meant, holy shit, I can choose to play this in active time, or I can choose to play this like old school turn based. Because like Final Fantasy games, the old, 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, that like era of the turn based combat, or Crisis Core, or even like the Trials of Mana games, or any of those, Legend of Dragoon. There's a certain charm to that turn based that I've always enjoyed. I think it's whenever you factor random encounters in there is whenever it's like I don't know which I like the least. Is it the random encounter aspect or is it the turn based aspect? Because both slow the gameplay down quite a bit. But if I had the option to play remake and rebirth in that turn-based style, I would love it. I would eat that shit up. Especially how graphically enhanced those games are, and the charm that and nostalgia from the turn-based style like that. I don't know. Like I think I would actually enjoy that just because I don't know, grew up playing games like that. So if they had gave me the option to do both with 7 remake, I probably would have played through the game twice faster because I could experience the game at least two different ways. But I would definitely wouldn't say I'd prefer it to be turn-based over like active time. But I would like. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't like both. I would enjoy either one of those things. 'Cause I think they would. I think it would have taken away a lot of the hate too. Like if there was a way to do that turn-based. I think a lot of the like discourse around it would have been kind of, I don't know. They still would have been bitchy about story changes and stuff like that, but I enjoy turn-based. Gives me more time to think about what I'm doing too. So I was really disappointed whenever classic mode wasn't what I thought it was.
What is classic mode? What does it change?
When your
I think
ATB
it,
fills up, it just automatically uses a move for you or something.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Hmm.
So
That's
like
weird.
whenever your ATB fills it, like in Final Fantasy VII, whenever you have uh whatever um move ready to go, it's the only thing you can do.
Mhm.
It just does it in that. But I don't know. I remembered going at it thinking that it was going to make it turn based,
Yeah, I
and
never tried it.
I remembered it did something with like instead of it stopping time, it slowed it down and did something automatically rather than like
Yeah,
having the autonomy. But
I'm with you. Like I love turn-based. I think the things that I don't like about it, like I went back and started playing Legend of Dragoon, which is awesome, by the way. Um, but it was just the pace of the turn-based battles, right? It's the screen transition, and then it's like how long does it take once you select an attack for it to be carried out? Do you always have to watch this long animation? Like, can we it's just the speed of it. Like it just feels like it gives me anxiety, like if it goes slow. um
did they add a fast forward option in the? Can you fast forward it, like speed up the game?
in which, I'm sorry, which one were we talking about?
In the Legend of the version of Legend of Dragoon that you're playing, is there
Oh,
like a clicking the stick and it speeds up everything?
no, no, I don't think so. At least not that I found. So it's very, and so I just go into it knowing I have to have a lot of patience and it's an older design. But like I've been playing Metaphor, right? And that has one of the most well thought out turn-based systems ever. Because on one hand, if you're like a certain level higher than the enemies, you can just kill them out in the field. Like you do like real-time combat that feels just like, not just like Final Fantasy Rebirth, but it's not as nearly as deep. It's just a couple combo swings and dodge roll, but you can take care of them. You just see the experience pop up, and you don't have to go into this arena and watch the transition. But when you are fighting enemies that are the same level as you, um, you can hit them on the field to like get a stun going into the battle, but then you go into it and you can just execute the attack so quickly, but you're not on any timer, right? So it's still you're still taking turns with the enemy, but it feels really quick and you can skip longer animations and just get right to the damage essentially that they do. Like I love that. I love being able to think about it, and it's also like I can play those later in the day, um, without getting overstimulated because I'm not like reacting to real time action that's happening. So yeah.
Mhm.
I think
Um,
Pokemon Legends Arceus kind of handles that in a good way too, where you know most of the, I mean, all the combat in Pokemon is turn based, but like if you're out in the overworld, like you can throw your Pokemon at one of the
mhm.
Pokemon in the overworld, and it'll just like, well, I don't know if that's Arceus or maybe Scarlet and Violet. Some of it I get mixed up a little bit, but like you can just throw a Pokemon at one, and it'll kind of battle in the overworld in like a
Oh,
quick fashion.
that's Scarlet and Violet with the
Okay,
Let's Go.
but
But
yeah,
being in Arceus, whenever you can just catch a Pokemon in the wild, you don't even have to
yeah.
battle it because there is no battling. I think that's the thing in Scarlet and Violet. There's only, is that right?
No, you can battle.
There's no trainer
Yeah.
battles. That's what it is
Yeah,
outside the story. I knew there was like something different with the battles in Arceus, but being able to like quick catch just and like Pokeballs that were designed for catching, I don't know, without battling.
I don't
Pretty
know.
dope.
When it comes to turn based, I think it's just more about like immersion and function for me. Where like I said, in like older like sprite based games where you're not going to see a lot of animations and stuff, it's kind of like turn based work together with that in a way to like circumvent not being able to do something live. I totally get the appeal of like an RPG of like having time to like make those decisions. But
Mhm.
like I said, but I mean, with Rebirth and Remake, I think that because of the way they designed everything, like I think the live action combat of it benefited more. Whereas if like
Hmm.
they made like the overworld smaller and like I guess it's like made in like an overall like smaller compact game, I think turn based like if they just did like a straight remake or like a reboot or something, remaster of the original, I think that would have worked. But I don't think the scope would have been as large when it comes to like the world and everything like that. Um, wouldn't I'd still probably play it. Um, but yeah, it's just a matter of like I guess function and immersion for me of like when I do or don't prefer turn based.
No, I hear you. I made a note for another future topic I'll log, and that's like what makes a video game immersive. Like, 'cause I hear you talk about that a lot. I think we all have different like levels of like what that means to us and stuff. That'd be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so I was thinking like, I don't know, are video games immersive at all? Like, at what point does like a video game even become immersive? Because you're sitting in front of a TV with a controller and there's menus and stuff. It's like, but there is this point where it happens and you forget you're playing a game somehow. But that'd be a fun one to talk about. I have one more question about video game mechanics. I think this is a fun one. What do you guys think of losing your experience or losing your souls in video games? I'll share my thoughts on this real quick. I don't think it would make the games any worse. I think it would probably make them better. If you could die but keep the experience you accumulated, level up, and then go back through that area with more strength and without that consequence of wasted time, I think that would be better overall. I get the sense of satisfaction in like the Souls games where it's like, oh, you got to go get it, and there's this risk, and that makes it more rewarding. But like, I have never enjoyed those games more by dying and losing my souls than I have by keeping them and leveling up, right? And it's like a lot of games are doing that now. That well, pretty much Souls likes, but even like Jedi Fallen Order or whatever did it. I think right, and maybe the second one did too. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
I think it's BS. Like it's so discouraging, especially if you're an adult and you're not just trying to like play it on a DDR dance pad or whatever the heck they're doing now. But but it pisses me off, and like that's such a big argument for those games, which are some of the best games ever, in my opinion. And people being like, well, that's just how they are, and that's part of their identity. And I'm like, that's the thing I think of least. But anyway, what do you guys? I think I probably know generally how you feel about it, but like, what do you guys
So
think of like that idea?
I think Liza P handles it probably the best that I've seen. Where like if you die outside of like in a boss battle, you can pick them up right outside the door.
Mm,
Yeah.
Um,
mm-hmm.
but I think overall, I'm not really a fan of it. But I think that's a potential like area of growth for like accessibility games. Um, in the sense of like something like Starfield, for instance, most recently, like one of their most recent updates, they added like a lot of difficulty, like sliders and stuff, to where instead of just having like easy, medium, and hard, you would have like enemy health levels, like your personal health levels, a slider on how much you could carry, and those had like pros and cons to them. Where like if you increase the like enemy health, um, like you might get more XP per kill. Or if you open up how much you can carry in your inventory, you get less XP. So I think that would be like one area for like Souls games to improve on, like give you that option of like you can lose them every time like you die, but you get more of them, or you get like a smaller amount, but you keep it when you die. Like I think that would be a good trade-off.
That's smart. I
And
like
instead
that.
of just
Yeah.
instead of just
Percentage.
like putting that overall like an easy mode or a hard mode, like accessibility options to say this is the way I want to play, because there are a lot of things games like that where like in a first person shooter the time to kill may be too long. Like enemy may be a bullet sponge, but if you gave us the ability to like make some kind of trade off there, like make them less of a bullet sponge, but give me less XP or like less items like rewarded to you after you beat them, whatever it is. But I do think that's like one area that Souls games could improve on is just overall accessibility and like I said, I know that was like one of the complaints with like something like Cuphead not having like an easy mode. But if there was like more options for people to kind of like choose how they want to play, I get the idea of the developer having like this is the way we're designing it and this is what our game is. But like I said, anytime the user has not necessarily just make the game easy, but just give us options on how we want to play.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Barrett.
No, you go ahead and say what you're gonna say because I was gonna dovetail from that.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, I don't think difficulty is an important part of video game design to me. Like, that's cool, and like, yeah, I tend to get like a sense of gratification, like barely, if something's really challenging or hard. But um, I'm happy to play an easy game, or even a game that's just, medium challenging or whatever. I just want to experience the world and the story and the feeling of playing it. But and then the difficulty is not the most critical part. Now it can be at a certain point where it's like, well, I'm not having to use any of these cool abilities I have because my main attack is doing everything. Like, totally get that. Like, you want to make sure the mechanics and stuff are meaningful still. But yeah, overall, like, I don't play the Souls games because they're hard. I guess it's like, and for me, I don't know if that makes me unique or what, but it seems like a lot of people do. When I'm like, that's like my least favorite part of the Souls games. The best part is the lore, the story, the items, the experience of moving through it. So I just think it's interesting. But yeah, what were you gonna say, Barrett?
Kind of like in the same vein of like games where you lose something when you die, but trying to find something outside of the souls.
Hmm.
Like it takes me all the way back to like Sonic. Whenever you die and you lose all your rings, or you lose a bunch of your rings and you got to gain them all back, it's just like discouraging. Or I remember getting into multiplayer in Halo 3 and learning what ranked was, and it is kind of like that. But like whenever you'd lose and you'd be building up this rank, and then lose, and your rank going down. You have like 5 bad games in a row, and you lose rank, and just like getting that discouragement. Like I feel like that even with Souls games, whenever I'm I was just fucking dicking around running this direction for no reason and accidentally lost 100,000 souls. And now before I can do anything in the way of what I like need to do, I need to go back and get my shit, and I get distracted by that. Or I don't know. I don't like it, but um yeah, I don't like
I,
losing anything that I've put time into in a game, because at that point I have like my like dad's words in my ear of like, you're wasting your time playing these fucking video games. Because and like I don't know, like just when I can put time into something and lose progress like that in a way, I don't know. I definitely like it has made me put games down for sure. Um, I mean, it's the reason I've never beat any of the Dark Souls games. Um, I don't know how I stuck it out with Borderlands on my own, but or not Borderlands, Bloodborne. But yeah, I don't like gaining something to be able to lose it necessarily, and having like it's nice at least in Dark Souls, like you've got a chance to go back and get it. But in Halo, like I was talking about with your rank, you've got to earn it back. Or in any ranked system. But I just remember learning about what ranked matches were in multiplayer from Halo 3. And when I realized that that number would go down, I avoided anything ranked. It's like, I'm not going to do that because it doesn't feel good to like watch that number fluctuate to me, or it didn't at the time. And Sonic games, I mean, barely get hit and you lose a bunch of your rings. I don't know. Definitely not my favorite. I would like to be able to keep the shit that I earned in a game without losing time.
Yeah.
I mean, Dark Souls has definitely put me through the most of that. But
Well,
Well,
Nick,
it
since you
handicaps you.
do what?
Go ahead, Brandon.
no, what'd you say, Nick?
I was saying it handicaps you at a certain point, right? You're
Yeah.
like, I think you kind of made the point. You got to go grind now for however many hours just to be able to have sufficient stats to survive the next fight.
Especially if like one NPC puts you through fucking hell and you lose everything you gained from that, other than maybe like an item it dropped, but you lose the 10,000 souls it dropped, and then you have to go fight it again just to get your shit back.
And if you don't, it's lost forever. And it's like, well, there's no way to fix that. I mean, besides just going and, spending hours just farming, but then it's like, oh, but you can't get rid of that sense of regret and,
Yeah.
and remorse because you're like, man, I would have not had to have done that if things went differently. And it's like, oh my God. So yeah, I'm not a
I
fan
didn't
of it.
just fucking suck at this game.
Well, and I honestly think people are crazy who like that. Like who are like, no man, it's great, it's the best thing ever. You're just not hardcore enough. I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't you have a hard enough time like not stubbing your toe when you walk down the hall to where like who needs this cancer in their life of just
Yeah.
like don't you have enough failures just living a normal life to where like you don't need to invite it in as an optional thing? At least that's how I feel about it. But I guess some people are more bored than I am. But anyway.
I mean,
But yeah,
as
so
far
next
as
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as far as like bad mechanics go, and like being on Souls games, I I know you guys have felt it, but like if anybody's watched us play through it, like my least favorite thing about Souls games is the matchmaking and the griefing.
Oh, what is griefing?
The players that come in and just like ruin
Oh
other players'
yeah,
experience.
that's literal hell.
It
Yeah, the people that seem like they're getting paid by From Software just to like be fucking server security and make sure there's no people like having. I hope nobody here's having a good time, because if there's anyone here having a good time, I'm here to shut that shit down. It trickles down from the top. They pay me to be here. I don't know what else to say.
like it's one thing if like you opt into that in the sense of
Yeah.
like I'm wanting to play like PvP against another player.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can just like summon in and
It is
attack
such
you
a BS.
without like you having any control over that, I mean, I know you can like play in offline mode, but if you're doing like what we're doing, where we're just
You can't do
trying to
that.
play through
Yeah.
a level together, and then like this one guy that has nothing better to do than to waste somebody else's time, like in a game that's already hard enough. It's like because the only people that grief like that are the ones that are good enough to do it. Like
Uh-huh.
rarely ever do you run into people that are just like cakewalks.
You're
Unless you
sideways.
unless you hop into us. Sorry, I'm trying to.
It's all right. Well, I mean, okay, it's like already the servers are complete balls. Then you have a consumable that you have to use to even get the partying to be enabled. And then the game is hard as balls already, right? And so now you have someone who's actively present to disrupt that. I think it's absolutely heinous. Um, and I think that this would be a good timestamp, like for a short conversation. I mean, it's the worst thing ever. It's literally like, oh, you got into heaven. Here's your family. Oh, hey, here comes the thing to kick you out. It's like, about to, it's hell now. It just sucks. It's like I applaud it for how heinous it is. Like, because it's just like if someone had described that, like, hey, you can do two-player Mario, but there's gonna be an active shooter in the gonna come and join the game, and you're gonna have to dodge that. And I've been like, no, absolutely don't want that. But yeah, good call out, Brandon.
One of the others is when in a game when you die, if you ever pop up a screen asking somebody where they want to restart at is always
Oh
a no go
Jesus,
for
I
me.
don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about this.
Like, okay, I mean
It should
that's
not be more
obviously
than two options.
that's one of like the biggest ones this year for me was just getting that screen in Rebirth at
Ugh.
like I think like the 13th of the 14 chapters. Like, I'm just curious in what scenario would you ever pick the other two options if you
Your
knew what they
material wasn't
mean?
set.
That's true. I mean, I
I
guess
mean,
that
that's
can
the
make.
only. But to your point, like, I mean, how about just restart before this battle initiated, or restart from last save? I don't know. Versus continue fight.
Well, not only that, like the options weren't clear. It's
No,
like
I know. That's what
it's
I'm
like
saying.
retry this fight, retry before this fight, or like retry level, and it's like, okay, where's this going to take me?
I mean, it took me out, man, dude. Like, I'm a reasonably intelligent person. Like, I don't like, like I can tie my shoes and stuff, right? And that took so much effort, and it never actually made sense. Like learning that by trial and error is one of the most punishing experiences I've had in a game, like in a long time, and just absolutely incapacitated by doing that over and over again.
Like if it was a short like 2 or like 5 minute fight, it'd be one thing. But like that section I died at, it was like if I picked the wrong thing, I'm going back like an hour, hour and a
Yeah,
half here.
I did.
So I spent like 45 minutes to an hour on Reddit just making sure I'm picking the right option because other people had the same concern. And I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm going to make sure I pick the right thing.
and good for you, because I played that fight so long that my blood sugar dropped, and like I had to just go eat like a granola bar just to feel not sick. So yeah, definitely agree with that. Any continue screens that aren't clear, it just, yeah, it's absolute
Yeah,
balls.
yeah. Whatever happened to a good like, resume, load save, main menu? You know,
Mm.
why can't it
Well,
just be that simple?
there are a couple quirky things in Remake, like just the how to change your party is under combat settings. It is not under party. like I've finally trained myself to realize that, but I'm like, so what does going to party do? It's like it just kind of shows you the party, but then combat settings is where you change your party. It's like, what? How did that get through? Like who thought that was a good idea? But I mean, it's a small gripe, but it's just like, what in the world? Like just the lack of clarity. I think some of that has to do with translation,
Yeah, I was going to
right?
say localization has a
Yeah,
lot to do with it.
yeah, exactly. Localization is a big thing that can impact that. But a lot of games do it right, it seems, without any issue. I'm not confused in Legend of Zelda about like, how to change my armor. Um, but yeah,
Well,
Simplicity is everything.
speaking of like
yeah.
the one bad mechanic in Zelda, or at least in the newer ones that I wanted to mention was
Mm.
weapon durability.
Oh yeah.
I don't mind it being there, but it's more so like give me either an ability to improve it or a workbench to repair stuff or like um or even if it was like an ability you unlock that reduces like the wear or something over time. But like when it seems like every item you have, you pick up, and within like 3 or 4 hits with it, it's done. And there's like,
Did they not? They did something about that with Tears of the Kingdom, right? Where like if you're using a stick and it starts getting weak, you can combine it with a rock and something else, and it resets its durability. Is that right?
Kind of.
Or strengthens its durability? Like you can kind of keep the same thing going for a while just by like building onto it more.
Longer, yeah. Yeah, you can definitely make things last longer, but it's still gonna break eventually, no matter what you do
Yeah.
to it.
I mean, that did
Um,
drive me insane in Breath of the Wild. Like finding a dope ass sword, knowing that I've got to save this for when I really need it.
I don't even know, like, it didn't even make sense though. Like, at what point in time in that conversation of making the game were they like, we really need to have it where you can't keep these weapons? It's like,
Part of that
oh, why is
grind.
it? Yeah, like, was like, well, someone said, well, why can't they keep weapons? Like, wouldn't that be really cool? It's like, well, like, well, I don't even know what the conversation was next to go like, no, no, we really need them to break. And then, like you said, Brandon, to not have a point where you could like bless or endow or take the weapons to a blacksmith in the game to be like, oh, hey, maybe it'll break, but it restores like the master sword after 5 minutes. Like, I could have coped with that and had something to work towards. But yeah, getting these awesome swords in that game particularly was so almost meaningless because you're like, okay, cool, that'll help me with some fights, but I'm not getting too excited about it. Now, once you built your house in Breath of the Wild, you could put some on the walls. That was a little bit of a redeeming factor where you put them on the wall mounts. I don't know if y'all did that. Um,
yeah.
Mhm.
but you could keep them. You build a house in Breath of the Wild, and then you can upgrade it, and then you put wall mounts in it, and you can put weapons up permanently, like on the walls. So that was cool.
The only argument I've ever really heard that like made any sense was just the idea that you don't get too comfortable with like a play style, and it kind of forces you to try new things.
Mm,
And like I said,
yeah, I guess.
I get that, but it's just
Yeah,
it also doesn't let you like choose a play style. Like you have to pretty much just adapt.
yeah. I mean, I don't. I get the point, and I guess some people could feel that way, but I didn't play through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth feeling, what would have made this materia system better is if that cure broke after 5 uses and I had to put a new one on, or fire broke. I can't even like just basic conversation for 30 minutes amongst developers would have been like, yeah,
Or like you
humans
could
don't
literally
like,
use up materia after so
yeah,
long. It would,
like people don't like that stuff, but it's a little baffling, but I mean, I get it. I can respect the decision and still appreciate the game and not just hate it for that. But it's like, what made them think that was better than being able to have this arsenal of permanent weapons with stats? I mean, why stop there? Why not have your armor break? You know, why not have everything just break at some point? That'll really force you to use different
like
abilities. It's like,
like Skyrim, where but in Skyrim you can repair it, which is nice. Like
yeah,
things lose their durability or whatever, but
right,
repair it over time.
yeah. So next topic, guys. This is one I picked out. But video game graphics. And I don't. This question really doesn't even necessarily apply just to video games, but that's for me is my favorite medium. But like, what makes good game graphics? What matters to you about how a game looks? And what doesn't? Um, I'll say I like a variety of games. I like games that sometimes look like photorealistic and amazing, like technologically, like Uncharted or Last of Us or maybe Gears of War. Like they're going for as hyper detailed as possible of a look. I mean, even Final Fantasy VII Rebirth kind of pushes towards that while still having the characters look a little anime with their proportions and stuff like that. Like I really like that. I think that's great. But then I also like games like Wind Waker and Metaphor and Persona where they're not trying at all to um not trying at all to like blow you away with like the technology. It's all about like the execution of the art and how it's incorporated into the game and stuff like that. And so like I like the variety, and then I also like the indie games that are pixel art. Like I love those. So like none of those three like styles in that example are like my favorite. Um, like it just depends on what I'm in the mood for at the moment. But I think ultimately all comes down to like the quality of the art, right? Like, do I feel like this is, oh wow, this is really well put together. This is a really cool design. But yeah, that's like in a nutshell kind of what matters for me. And I like variety. I don't want all the games to look the same. I want them to look like really different from each other. And that can be a problem too with like Sony games. They look fantastic. First party PlayStation games look awesome, but they're all going for like a very specific, for the most part, realistic, like movie quality visuals. And you don't see as much about like some kind of risky like cell shaded type stuff, at least in my experience. But yeah, like what are you guys into? Like, what are some examples of what you like or what you look for when it comes to or consider good graphics?
Well, I kind of have a few like two or three like criteria on like based on how I judge graphics. And like so it's like on one hand you do have that realism, and then on the other side of things you also have uh like a tone or a vibe or an identity like you're trying to establish. So like something like Borderlands with the Sobel, like I think it lends itself to create that identity. Like, and it also came out what on originally on 360, where I feel like that generation of gaming is kind of like the in between of being able to achieve realism and immersion at the same time. And there was like a lot of detail you would have missed out on that area in Borderlands if they didn't have like the the cell shading has like an outline around everything. So there's like a gun you pick up would have like a dent or something in it, and you'd actually be able to see it because of the art style. Um, and then to other things, like one of my favorite games over the past couple of years has been uh, Shredder's Revenge, where it's not like a direct sequel to like Turtles in Time back in the 90s, but it's like a spiritual successor. And so they use the same like pixel and sprite graphics from back then, but they refined them to make them better, but it still established like the same like feel and identity and nostalgia to a degree of like what the original was.
Um, I know, like, I don't really seek out hyper real. Like, I've never really been like, I mean, games like Grand Theft Auto 6, like that's on the horizon, but it's like I'm sure it's going to be graphically awesome, but like it's I don't know things that like stimulate life in a way that just look too real. I don't look forward to it because of the trajectory of like graphic engines, but like kind of like I was saying, like with like the Final Fantasy, if they had like the turn base in these new graphics that we have, like for Final Fantasy being like a property that I'm already into, it would be cool if they did an old style game in those new graphics. Like I'd be drawn to that, like hardcore. It's why I like the phone Final Fantasy game because it kind of catered to both. Um, but I know as far as like what I prefer, I like dark and edgy kind of stuff. Like I love the gothic look of Bloodborne and Dark Souls. Like aesthetically, that's probably like my favorite kind of look is that also drew me to Hunt, where it's got that dark, like I don't know, kind of look to it. Um, sorry, there's things happening behind me in the house. I'm trying to like fade out.
Okay, you're good.
Uh, but it doesn't like I also like the pixel art kind of stuff. So if like a new game comes out that's kind of like, at least to me at this point, what I feel like I'm looking for in video games is nostalgia, just to like draw me in. Some sort of something that reminds me of something else in a way. Or I mean, I'm not saying I'm not open to new things, but as far as like what is like pulling me in now, it's something that makes me think of something else that I already enjoy. Um, so like with I don't know. I always said that Hunt made me think of like this is Bloodborne, but an extraction shooter. Like it's just got I don't know the hats or make me think of it. The clothing choices that they put on each of the hunters, and I know like when I first set eyes on Bloodborne, I was like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to beat this game, but this is what I'm looking for visually in a game. And even now, like it doesn't have a PS5 upgrade, but on my PS4 Pro, that game it has grainy moments, but it still looks flawless to me. Like I would love to see it scaled up, but it doesn't have to be to still be good to me. Like I don't know. That game just like captured something for me that's like this is what I like in a dark and eerie kind of game. But also like on the flip side of that, poppy colors and stuff like the Pokemon games, there's something aesthetically pleasing to like all the different I don't know uh, color palettes that they use that just make it like visually appealing to the eye with Pokemon and Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, like those games. One, nostalgia, but two, like they just have like a good color palette. Not necessarily like Final Fantasy 16, but I don't know, 7 remake are just I do love the hyper realistic world, and I love that the characters that are pretty anime don't clash with that too much. Like it's found a really good balance. Um, I just thought of something that I had left out for the mechanics. I was going to bring up all the mini games and Rebirth that we've talked endlessly about, but those fucking frogs. Uh, anyway, it's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like other than like nostalgia or it kind of pertaining to a like game series that I'm already like into. Whenever it comes to a new game appealing to me, that like say it's like a one off, like Ghost of Tsushima. Um, that game is like super visually appealing to me. I think like I love the almost like Sekiro environment. It's like the wind blowing on the grass blades and like how good that shit looks. With y'all talking about how the wind guides you as like your waypoint too, it just makes that even more cool because I already liked how the environment looked a lot. But like, I mean, that game has that dark kind of look to it with a, I don't know. I mean, what's not cool about a fucking samurai? Um, yeah, it's hard to say like what pulls me in graphically because I have such a range of stuff that I like that graphics are never at the front of like what I'm judging about a game. There's got to be some sort of deeper level of interest, I guess, that makes me want to play it because like there's plenty of games I've missed out on, especially like even in the PS5 life cycle that are probably like graphically insane games, but I haven't had as much draw to play them because I don't know. Then maybe they're a one off that like, or a, you know, I say one off, but I can't think of really a better word for that. Like, I think I'm in an era of gaming for myself where I'm looking for something that's familiar while being fresh. So things like, what are some of the games that have come out on the PS5 that are like, it's staples?
Like Horizon.
Yeah, like Horizon. I
Yeah.
played probably an hour of the first one to the point to where Aloy like falls down and discovers some technology and finds the little thing that she can like I can't remember what it is, but like I don't know, like it didn't that goes back to like mechanics with like it just this feels like a rehash of something I've already played with a new twist on it, which isn't a bad thing. It's just
Mhm.
I know that I kind of struggle in the graphic department because that's not what I really look for in games because I'll sit down and play something on like a emulator or something that's old and appreciate it for what it was in its time, but more so because it's nostalgic to me, or maybe it's an old game that I always wanted to play and missed out on, and now I have access to it. So, and those I can just appreciate them for like what originally like drew me to this game, like kind of going to like the character design. Like maybe I remember the box art of a game, and I'm like, man, I really should have played that game. I don't know. I feel like I like with graphics and stuff. Yeah, it's a positive to have good graphics. I definitely don't like things that are. I mean, it definitely stands out to me in shit like Pokemon Scarlet, where gliding is a big feature of the game, and all the pop-in rendering shit looks pretty terrible at a certain point, but it doesn't take me out of it because I can find other things that I like about it. I don't know if that's a good answer, but
No, it's a
the kind
great
of like
answer.
with like graphics, like yeah, design of the game, like does the character design and architecture and stuff like that matters to me, but like how fluid and smooth and I don't know isn't really like or groundbreaking new graphics. And again, like Death Stranding, whenever it came out, like I was more interested in that game because it was what happened instead of PT, but not necessarily because it was going to be like Hideo Kojima's like cinematic masterpiece. So yeah,
I hear you. Brandon, what about you, man?
I mean, when it comes to realism like that, I still think that like Death Stranding's probably the best looking game I've seen so far.
Mm.
Haven't
Mm.
played all the way through it, but um, thank you. You also mentioned with like Horizon, like Forbidden West. I started playing it after Rebirth, and instantly it was like one of those things where like, man, this game looks amazing. Probably outside of Death Stranding, probably one of the better games I've seen. I wasn't able to get into it as much because just not being able to connect to the story as much. But yeah, I mean, I'm not too like concerned with the realism aspect, but I do think it can help. Like um, one game, for instance, that stands out is Hellblade. The fact, like the realism in that is what allows me to get immersed more. Like if that same game came out on like PS2 or PS3, I don't know if it would have like connected the same. But the fact that the the problems that the main character is having throughout the story and the fact that it a lot of like the visuals she's seeing too are realistic allows me to buy into it more.
like a cool tidbit about that game. Like I love that with that, like the main character is really cool in that game. She they didn't even cast for the main character. They were just testing out their like motion capture and needed someone and she was like a sound designer or something and they ended up just making her the main character of the game because it just went over so well. Like that's one of those cool like accidentally on purpose, perfect things that works out. I've seen a lot about that game and I want to play through it, but like yeah, I mean games like that, like there's definitely those one-off kind of games that like I'm missing out on because a lot of my pull to play something is for nostalgia or familiarity, and I have a more of a problem like jumping into the deep end on something I'm not as familiar with until I've become familiar with it over time, just through the grapevine or reading things about it.
Well,
whatever.
I found the best way to combat something like that is like, because I think like I don't know if this is like what you're dealing with, but I know for me when I'm like trying to go through a backlog or something, I'll get caught up on like how long something is to beat or like knowing how much time I'll have to invest in it. But like
Hmm.
it's almost therapeutic though to go through that backlog and just start up one of those games to see if I even like it. Because instead of it just like staying on the backlog, like in the back of my mind of like I've eventually got to play this. Sometimes like it just works to like start something up for 5, 10 minutes and like decide whether you like it or not, and then I can totally just like abandon it if I need to. And
Yeah.
I'm not like carrying that
See if it's got a good hook.
I'm not
Yeah.
carrying that baggage with me. So like that's the one thing I would
Mhm.
suggest to you. Like anytime like a game like Ghost of Tsushima or Hellblade comes up, is just to like don't commit to those 8, 20, 50 hours. Just say I'm gonna sit down for like 30 minutes and like that's it. Like that's all you're gonna hold yourself to. And then after that time, if you're not hooked by it and want to play more, then just like move on. And then
Yeah.
that way you're not really dealing with the anxiety of like, man, I'm missing out on this, and I'll get to it eventually. And because, dude, I go through the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot that I know there's good shit out there, and I'm missing out on it because I'm kind of like sticking. I'm in my little bubble right now of games,
Well,
and
and
it's kind of been like that for me for a few years,
the
where
other
like
thing with
I'm
that,
getting less daring to try new stuff that looks really cool because I've seen polished turds for years. I've seen all these fucking polished turds. They look great, but there's like, and it kind of takes years and years of people being like, Ghost of Tsushima is one of the greatest games of all fucking time. And everybody that I know is talking about it. And I'm going to work and I'm seeing people with shirts of it that I'm just like, that's a conversation starter because everyone tells me that game is fucking good. What do you think about it? Like, I don't know. Things like that will happen naturally. I feel like the ones that I really personally, this is, I don't know how this really sounds, but I'm just gonna say it how I'm thinking it. Like those, the real ones will eventually float to the top, and that's like with those two examples, Ghost of Tsushima and Hellblade. Like those things are moving to the top of that priority list because I've heard so much great things about them. The YouTubers the podcasts I listen to talk about them, and they're on their docket to like cover. Like a lot of my friends, like y'all and Noah and Lucas, like they all talk those games up a lot. So like I don't know. That's kind of like I wait through that waiting period instead of like hopping on to something or spending 60 $70 on a game for it to be yeah, it's got good graphics, but it's I didn't really get anything out of it. And even on top of that, just the amount of time I actually do put into games nowadays and the focal point of my ADHD is just not there to like commit to polished turds. So, but no, I hear what you're saying. Like I need to like try and at least, boot one of those up because I've got a big backlog of games that I've not touched. And, but games like those have risen to the top of the priority of what I do want to play just because of all the praise that I've heard them get from people that I respect their opinion.
yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
that's one thing I dealt with bad is like as long as my backlog is, it's like okay, all these games like I eventually need to play. That list is only going to keep getting longer, and
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, like two realizations I've had is just you know n- getting to a point in some games where I'm like, okay, this just wasn't for me, and knowing that some of those games are probably good to some people, and I know Nick and I've already talked about this just a little bit, but like, I mean, that's the way I was feeling about Metaphor. Like, I played the demo. There's not really anything bad about it. It didn't hook me, and I can recognize that that's a good game, and there's already people like claiming it as game of the year already. And I can
Mm-hmm.
also be like, well, I just wasn't interested in it, and that's okay. but I was able
Yeah.
to kind of just like remove that from my wish list. So like that's no longer like taking up space on that backlog that I know is never going to be complete.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to approach it.
Yeah. Also, it's like I've gotten the point too where like gosh, it's so easy to overthink. Like, okay, what am I going to do at this time? And I need to finish this or I need to start that and stuff. And it's like trying to like re-ground myself. This we're not really talking about graphics anymore, and that's okay. But like re-ground myself and be like, well, first of all, awesome, I have this thing, like these games and stuff. Like how privileged am I to like have this PlayStation, have all these games to choose from, and it's like just remove that pressure from myself and just like, what do I want to play today, right now, in these hours of time that I have. And that's what liberates me to just like jump back into whatever. Like, okay, you know
Mhm.
what? I'm gonna play Final Fantasy X for 4 hours, and then maybe not pick it up again for 5 months. And I've just gotten to be okay with that. And there's part of me that's like, man, well, what was the point? But I don't know if you're doing it to feel good and you're doing it to like experience something, whether it's a story or art or whatever, then it's fine. And it's like that's like trying to let yourself off the hook with it. But I totally get it too. It's like, you have a goal in mind with how you spend your time and stuff like that. It can be challenging to
I
figure out.
I've spent years hopping, like game hopping, like
Hmm.
we all, I mean, everybody does it, but I think to me, I start, when I go a really long time without completing anything, I start like
Hmm.
really thinking, what do I enjoy? What do I actually enjoy playing? So like going back and playing BioShock Infinite, like I'm doing
Mm.
now, is just,
Yeah.
I love the way the BioShock games look to try and get back in the vein of graphics. Like I, I
Hmm.
I loved how I mean, the color appeal, the character design, the enemy design, really cool. But also like just like the shit that's hidden around everywhere, like and all the propaganda that you can read that's just like, head turning. Um, I don't know. I didn't mean to get like it kind of stirred off of like
Oh, I'm glad we talked
yeah,
about
into like, but it's like I kind of like with graphics aren't. I guess I've just kind of I can't really think about like what with graphics that like really draws me into playing a game. What do I enjoy about them? I can like, you know, harp on like the games that I like that I believe do have good graphics, but I couldn't tell you like why a graphical, like why that draws me to certain games. It more so that I've kind of let it not draw me to much new stuff because I've been misguided with it a lot because thinking like something's going to be like holy shit, this is a like milestone in video game graphics. I have to play it because this is a you know the newest biggest whenever like what was it uh like Valorant or Callisto Protocol, whenever or
Yeah.
Deathloop, like whenever these games were coming out that were like holy shit, these are awesome, graphics are great. I don't know. Wasn't like I think surrounding that conversation is the first thing I think of is like I might mentally intentionally dodge games that are good mostly based on the graphics.
Mm.
So that's why I kind of look for things with nostalgia because it's like and I mean going like whenever they're remastering like classic games like I love that because it's something familiar and I get to look at it with a fresh new take. So like I'm even okay with most of those things. Um, yeah, sorry to kind of like
Yeah.
tangent that off to it off a
No,
different direction, but
that's
like
a
I
that's a
trying to find
good
a way where I can
conversation.
talk about like what interests me about graphics without being too negative.
Yeah. No, and I think that makes sense. Like, and there's like I understand that school of thought. I also though sometimes have this perspective where it's like, um, I find it frustrating when people do say, and I'm not saying you're saying this, Barrett, but when people are like, graphics don't matter, it's all about gameplay. And I'm like, well,
I
no,
don't
that's
believe
that's
that.
not, yeah, like, and I don't think you believe that, but like you see that, obviously on the internet though, and people say it that I've known and stuff, and you're like, it is called a video game for a reason, right?
Mhm.
Like there's a visual component is like a vast majority of it. So you got to enjoy what you're looking at, whether it's Tetris or Pac-Man. Like you can like that who's to say what good graphics are? But I think good graphics are necessary no matter what you're into. Is to say, hey, I really liked what that did. And I think it's also okay to like a game and go, hey, I really like the game, but it's ugly as balls, you know,
Yeah,
and say that.
bad graphics are a part of the charm.
Yeah. Well,
The
and
charm of
dude,
some things. Like
they are like Metaphor. That game is ugly as hell in some spots. Like you're just like what? But then you see like the 4K anime faces during like the dialogue, like that are straight up anime hand drawn illustrations and stuff, and you're like, oh, this is the best looking. Like, oh my god, I love this. I love that it's got this super awesome. There's like hand drawn cutscenes and stuff, and like, oh, okay, this is beautiful. These are like the best graphics ever in that way. But I also think it's okay. Like Hellblade is a great example of like it's just about the immersion, right? Like it's just about looking at it and appreciating and go, hey, look, this is like a technological marvel. Yeah, the gameplay's fun, but I wouldn't like argue that it has better combat than any other combat based game. It's just that it's about the whole experience and the sound design. I think that's okay. I think it's okay to be like, yeah, it's just one of those games you turn on to like really soak in the atmosphere and then how well this is crafted and stuff like that. They're not my favorite games. I think like they'll never be my favorite games for that. But but yeah, I mean, as far as like discourse goes on like good looking, bad looking, what matters about how a game looks and stuff. I think one thing for me is like, a game I've also realized like Ubisoft's kind of taught me this is the game can look amazing as far as like the textures, the designs, but when it starts moving, if the animation isn't there, like if I feel like it's janky or out of place or something like that, or not much time got spent on making this character walk like a human, like totally rips me away from appreciating the visuals. Like, okay, it's like, okay, great, you made like this hair moves really well and is really high def, but like, the character looks like something's wrong with them, like they're a robot or something with like their knees don't bend. Like I felt that way about Alan Wake 2 at some parts. Like I think it's a fantastic game, but like your character for the life of them cannot open a doorknob normally. And I'm like, why did you even put that there? Don't even put the animation then. If the hand's gonna like every time you do it, they're gonna have the flashlight in their hand while they're turning the doorknob. I'm like, that doesn't look good. Like you spent how many
that.
hours did you spend on that? And but it looks terrible because their flashlight's in their hand while they're turning it. Like it doesn't even make any sense, Like that stuff, that's bad graphics to me. Even though the game looks like photorealistic and the lighting's amazing and there's trees moving in the wind, it's like if my character's gonna have an apple or something in their hand while they scratch their face, it's like you totally wasted your time making. I'm serious. It's just so stupid. Like I don't get it.
My
Like
biggest
That
pet peeve
advertise
was
that.
my biggest pet peeve with stuff like that's clipping.
Ugh,
And
yeah.
like if it's a game like Skyrim or something where like you're putting on different pieces of armor that are going to conflict, that's one thing. But like that's probably the one gripe with Ghost of Tsushima that I've had is the different outfits you get in the game are specific. Like it's all one piece.
Hmm.
So if I've got a cape that's like flowing on my back, I shouldn't have like part of my belt clipping through it. Like that's one
That is a
thing
pet peeve.
that they should have, especially when you're trying to get stuff for like photo mode or whatever. Like that's the one
Hmm.
thing. It's like this whole like outfit is one piece. Like that's one thing they should have came been able to accomplish is a belt not clipping through your cape. So
Yeah.
that was what I was hoping they would get rid of whenever they updated Hunt, because the poses for each gun is the same for every hunter. So like if you're holding the Winfield Talon, you've got it over your shoulder like this, or you're holding a gun like this. And there's so many different characters with different situations, capes, hoods, all kinds of stuff. So every character, their gun is clipping through some form of their cape. Like one of my favorite hunters is the Lonely Howl, and he's wearing this wolf headdress over his head, and it's big and clunky. And whenever he's got his gun over his shoulder, it is just this deep in his hood, just going straight through it, hitting where his actual shoulder would be, and not like so. Yeah, it's like those things. It doesn't bother me. It would be nice if they would fix it. It doesn't break the game to me though. Like it doesn't like I don't know. It doesn't take me out of it too much. It's just at mostly funny to laugh at, you know, and just find humor in it. Where it's like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I haven't had a game where like that kind of thing has like taken me out of it too much. I guess other than just being
Yeah.
like that's silly. Now, if you're T-posing and you're just moving, ice skating in games like that does bother me a little bit, but it's become more humorous to me than like I don't know. None of the games I really play now really have a problem with that, but I do remember like what I wish I could think of a good example, but yeah, just like ice skating through games where there's no feet animations, especially if you're playing co-op and the person you're playing with is literally just like their feet are still and they're just skating through.
Well, guys, to wrap up
They're like
this,
Fable 2. That's the
yeah,
one I'm thinking of.
to wrap up this topic and then this session for today, I'd say, uh, do you have a game in mind that's just beautiful graphics? Hey, go look at this game. You would tell somebody, or hey, this is a game I'd love to show you. I will say mine that is probably an unconventional pick, but I always think about these days is Eastward, the indie
Well,
game.
yeah,
It's
it's great.
pixel art, and it is the best pixel art probably I've ever seen. I mean, it's up there like Sea of Stars and stuff is up there, but it is so good. Like I'm like, man, this is like a triple A pixel art game. Like where at times like how did they even do this? And there's so much of it, like little character animations, and it's like the best pixel art you'd ever seen, then multiplied by like five. Um, and just like turning on sinks and stuff in this pixel game and water coming out the faucet, like, and then just the sheer detail of the pixels and all the little expressions and stuff on the characters and the trees and the enemies. Like it's awesome. Like to me, they took it and made it. It's like a legitimate art form using pixels, and they showed that. So that's a game I wish was on PlayStation, but I've played it on Switch and I think a little bit on Xbox. But that's a pick for me. What's one from you guys that you would say? I mean, you mentioned a couple throughout this, but
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but Rebirth I still think has the best graphics of any
Mhm.
game that I've played.
That's a
It's
beautiful game.
like just such a beautiful world, especially like if the locations are familiar to you, it's even more beautiful. But even if they're
Mm.
not, like that game is just really good world design, character design, no issues from it that like take me out of it. Like that game is just smooth.
It's a good pick.
The one I'll say, and this is where like probably where realism means the most to me, is like something like Gran Turismo, because they're
Mm.
actually like replicating, something real. And between Forza and Gran Turismo, like the latest versions of both games, like there's actual modes where like you can go inside the car, and it's like one for one on just about any detail you can think of.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's like no, what do they call them, jaggies or whatever? Like when there's a curved metal surface, it just looks totally curved. Doesn't look like it's a bunch of polygons. And that's like an extreme example too, like of like the strongest attempt to make something photorealistic in a video game, like because it's trying to be a simulation. And yeah, like
Yeah.
that's amazing too. But then you have Wind Waker, and I think it's just so cool that all those exist. I'd hate it if everything was photorealistic or everything was cartoony or everything was pixely. I love
Hmm.
and I hope that games can like be successful despite having this feature or that feature or whatever. Like there's not a standard feature set. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, Is it bugging out? Is it, is my character flying off, their arm is stretching and like twitching behind their head, or those crazy stuff where you just feel like, oh, this got rushed. They just wanted to hit this deadline so they could sell it. That, long as I don't feel like that happened, I'm good. Even if there are
Mhm.
bugs, I'm fine. It's just like, do I feel like they rushed it and they knew it wasn't finished? Like that can piss me off because I'm like, they knew this wasn't done and they don't care. But anyway, great conversation, guys. Good point to wrap up. I think we're at time, and I know we got different stuff we got to do today, but I've really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was good.
Cool guys. Awesome guys. Well, everybody have a great day, and we'll connect again in about a week. All right.
Yep. See ya.
And then yeah, next time we'll be at my place, so that'll be
Yep.
fun.
And try to do
I'll
this
follow up with you
all
guys.
live in person.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah, that'll be
I'll
cool.
have my surrogate there. All right, guys. Have a great day. All right.
See ya.
All right.
Dude.